My name is Dr. Nicola Harding. I'm a criminologist and the CEO of We Fight Fraud.
And I'm Samantha Moore, Head of Research at We Fight Fraud.
So, Sam, we have come together because I'm very excited about this.
I'm really excited as well.
Okay. So, if you don't know me and Sam, I used to be a lecturer at Lancaster Uni.
My favourite one.
And see, I didn't even pay her to say that. So when I was a criminologist lecturer at Lancaster Uni, before I started as CEO of We Fight Fraud, I actually taught Sam, and she might be my favourite, but we won't say that out loud because we can't offend Olivia.
I knew it.
But I did teach Sam 3 years of your undergraduate, and then I was your dissertation supervisor, wasn't I, for a year of your masters. And I can just say, first class undergraduate student and masters with distinction, no less. So Sam is also a criminologist. What I did when I was at the university was we developed a module called Living Crim. So my area of expertise as a criminologist is that of lived experience. So what that means is I work directly with people with lived experience of different forms of crime, but also victims, but specialised mostly in women, serious organised crime, fraud, financial crime. But the whole point was, rather than making assumptions about people who have been engaged in crime or been victims of crime and sticking to stereotypes, it was that we bring people with lived experience into the research process. So taking that theme on, when I was a lecturer, I developed a module called Living Crim, which you did.
I did. Got an A, thank you very much.
And in that module, we brought in people who had different experiences of committing crime and then what happened to them
literally
afterwards.
like every end of the spectrum.
So we had, I think,
you had a murderer.
Yeah, someone who'd been convicted of murder, someone who was born into the Italian mafia, people who had done, I guess, more mundane, like everyday offences, like Poppy crashed her car into a tree, didn't she, because she had alcohol addiction and that had taken her down a path. Sex workers. And everyone had a unique story of like what had got them there, but also how the decisions they made had been shaped by society, shaped by processes. And it was only by understanding them that we could really, truly understand crime. And then crucially for me, and what I was interested in is how, on understanding crime in that way, we could then go on and try and prevent it. And so obviously you now work for me at We Fight Fraud, and I am the best boss in the world. But
She is.
but what we wanted to do was not let the idea of living criminology die, because I think it's so important that we hear directly from people who've been through, I guess, some of the things that we talk about every day. You know, we prevent financial crime now, so we work with people in banks, in government, from across the world, people who are creating technology and solution providers to try and stop this thing we call fraud and financial crime. But quite often they've never actually directly heard from or spoke to someone who's committed it. They don't necessarily know what that looks like, and they don't know the challenges or the emotions that someone who's fallen victim to fraud scams or, who've been harmed by money laundering activities, they just never really hear or see that. It's always, just a line of data.
I feel like trying to understand crime without understanding it from the criminal and the victim perspective is like a doctor trying to diagnose you without asking you symptoms. It just doesn't make sense. You need that holistic approach to it. So you just can't have one understanding without the other. You need the full story. You need the backstory. You need the stuff that doesn't even seem relevant, but actually like those little behaviours and those new patterns of thinking. That's what makes someone, whether they like go one way or the other, that is what makes someone.
And this is what we try and do at We Fight Fraud, right? Is we're all about bringing together every bit of data around that crime or around that process. You know, we look at people, processes, policies and products and think about where are the vulnerabilities based on ultimately that full holistic understanding of fraud and financial crime. Now, that sounds very official, doesn't it, of what we do at We Fight Fraud?
Yeah,
but
we're good at sounding official.
but ultimately, you know, it sounds quite complex, but actually at the very fundamental, you know, bottom of it all is people and their stories. And that's what the Financial Crimes is about. You know, we've come together, we've got our journal where we go into depth on research projects. We speak directly to people who work in financial services, who are those MLROs, you know, those money laundering regulatory officers who are tasked with dealing with this in the industry. We look at the social issues, the new tech, all these different things in the journal. But I think one of the things you can't get across without hearing it directly from the person involved is that lived experience and why it matters, hence why we're doing this.
Yeah, and I also think, like, because we've obviously got the written journal, but to actually hear someone's story and hear the emotion that goes into it, whether they're a offender or a victim, you have to hear that emotional side from them without just making a snap judgment like they've done this one bad thing or they've fallen for this one scam. They're now labelled in a certain way. Like, no, there's always a backstory. And I think that's what we're going to unpack.
We need to judge a little less, understand a little more, and then that's the basis of which we can build true prevention moving forward.
I'm excited.
Me too. So with that being said, we invite you to join us on this journey as we embark on our podcast, The Financial Crimes.